Welcome back to another episode of Off Hours with Bourbon Lens. This is Jake, and excited for you all to meet one of the people that is really behind the scenes of bourbon and whiskey. You may see him active on LinkedIn. You may know him from his time with Bardstown Bourbon Company and now with Stoli Group in Kentucky. David Mandell is joining us. So David, thank you for joining the Bourbon Lens Off Hours edition.
Thank you for having me. It's truly a pleasure.
Yeah, we've gotten to hang out a lot over the last couple of years, and it's been great to get to know you a little bit better. And no better person, I think, embodies the idea of off hours than you do, because you have your hands really kind of in the bourbon industry and beyond quite a bit. And one of the things, just to start off, that you have your hands in the bourbon industry on is Kentucky Bourbon Festival. We are, when this launches, we will be a month away for that coming out. And so, as we had our re-invitation to the world in Kentucky Bourbon Festival last year, now to some nuanced changes, what gets you excited about this year's Kentucky Bourbon Festival?
Well, I'll tell you, there's so much, and it's been a wonderful journey. And I appreciate all the support we do of, the board, our great sponsors, the distilleries, because we were given a challenge a couple of years ago, which was to reshape the festival, because had we not reshaped it, the festival was probably not going to continue. And so we did that. We have a great team. And this year, as we brought the festival all outside. We opened up sampling for the first time all together. And it's hard to imagine that there wasn't just open sampling outside of the Bourbon Festival, but it was a bit different in the past. We went from having 17 distilleries participating to this year, 50 distilleries participating. But some of the main changes, the first thing we heard, and we heard it loud and clear from our festival goers last year, was make it easier for us to go in and out of the festival to get samples. And so the first thing we did is we changed the ticketing to have single ticket price, all sampling included, all 3 days. It's a fabulous deal. It's $125 a ticket. You come in and out, go out to the bourbon trail, come back in, go to events, go taste your favorite bourbons. Simple, easy. That's probably the single biggest change to the structure of the festival.
Mm-hmm.
We've really done a lot in terms of, improving and continuing to improve our educational experience, our hospitality experience. We look at this as, at least a 5-year journey here. And like any great business, we're going to continue to evolve. We're going to listen to our customers, and we're going to make the festival better each and every year.
Yeah. And I'm super excited. Last year, we pray that there's no rain this year, right? Knock on wood. Cause that was a little rough, but for me, last year was awesome. It was all about the opportunity. And I promote this to everyone that goes. Take the time and talk to the people that are there, because 99% of the time, it's going to be a master distiller or one of their best brand ambassadors. Go and spend time with them. Like, you don't have unfettered access to them on tours. Like, you are paying $125 for 3 days of opportunities to go meet the Dan and Andreas at Michter's, or Stephen Beam at Limestone Branch, or, people that that are growing brands like Dan and Michael from Penelope Bourbon, or Seth at Broken Barrel. You have all these, whether craft or large scale, that you can go and meet and pick their brains. And that's the differentiation, I think, of Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
Yeah. And you're in the bourbon capital of the world. You're outside, it's a beautiful, intimate experience. And that's, that's what we wanted to create. That's what we are creating, as an experience that you can't get anywhere else but in the bourbon capital of the world. And, you leave the festival, you walk out, you walk around town, you're going to see people that are like icons in the bourbon industry, whether you're going into little restaurants, you're going to New Scout and Scholar Brewery, you're going to Pat's Restaurant, anywhere you walk in, you're going to get, this experience that you get nowhere else.
Yep.
It's like, you're coming to a little hometown that just happens to be the bourbon capital of the world.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's going to be an exciting 3 days. And there's some great events. I know there's some tickets still left for the special events that the distilleries are doing. Please look into those. I think it's a great opportunity to get a more intimate environment. I know there's a few tickets left for some of the special education opportunities, whether with KBF or with certain distilleries. So if you are listening to this, go check that out. I think it's a really great opportunity to engage.
KYBourbonFestival.com. Go. I mean,
Yeah.
really, we are going to be closing tickets very shortly. It's almost sold out. But KYBourbonFestival.com. Sign up too for our newsletter. It also gives you immediate access when we launch new offerings. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, get them quickly. It's going to be a great festival. It's September 16th through the 19th.
Yeah, super excited for that. But wanted to get in, you've gone through a lot of, different developments and phases. For our listeners who may not know you, like you and the people like you in the industry are the unsung heroes that are giving and casting vision for these brands. And so what was it like for you to, kind of get into this spirits industry as a kind of a revolutionary product in Bardstown Bourbon Company, over the last 10 years?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, and it was one of those experiences that, myself, and my, other partners, Dan Lind and Garnett Black and, our main investor at the time, Peter Lofton, we got into the business at a time when bourbon was growing. And we came out, I came out to Bardstown in 2013, and we had the idea for a small distillery. But that very quickly changed as we met the folks in leadership of Bardstown, meaning the actual town. We saw and learned more about the Bourbon Trail, the numbers of people that were coming, and slowly but surely, this idea of a Napa-valley destination experience began to come together. But it's like any entrepreneurial venture. We didn't walk out there and all of a sudden say, hey, this is the idea. It developed over time. And the thing that we did is we built and assembled the greatest, team of people. But the thing that really changed the business, well, there are many of those times, was coming up with the idea for the Collaborative Distilling Program. Myself and Dan, we saw a need for custom whiskey production. We saw it in the market. We were very immersed in that side of the business. And we came up with the idea, went around and sold it before we even had the distillery built.
Yeah.
Sold out all the capacity. But, the funny part about that is it's one thing to sell it out and to come up with the idea. It's a totally different thing to then actually execute it. And that was when the fun began.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you've now gotten really immersed in that and you've taken your next step, right? You've really kind of exited that and moved into this new role with Stoli and really kind of bringing, this Kentucky Owl brand back to life, right? It's gone through many renditions from when Dixon revived it now to Stoli, owning it and really trying to architect something, big. And so as you vision cast again, right? Like this is an entrepreneurial thing. And I've watched a lot of Shark Tank recently. And so that's like the show me and my wife have just like immersed ourselves in, and I don't know why. But this idea of vision casting and bringing things to life, what would you say is the biggest thing to a bourbon brand or even Stoli, who is a huge producer of spirits? Like, how do they continue how do you help them vision cast into this industry?
Well, and I'll let me talk about it kind of generally too.
Yeah.
And I'll touch on that as well. Developing a brand is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a difference between a product and a brand. And what I would tell you is just because you get aged bourbon and put it in a bottle does not make it a brand. It makes it a product. You can sell that product right now, basically to any distributor. They'll take it, they'll push it into the market. Whether it gets bought more than once, it ever gets bought again is a totally different situation. What it takes to make a brand, in my opinion, is you have to create a true relationship between the consumer and your product. That relationship, there has to be, an attraction there that makes the person not only want it, but then buy it, then to obviously like it, then to go out and tell other people about it. There has to be that connection. So how do you make that connection? That's what we did at Bardstown.
Mm-hmm.
That was after we got the Collaborative Distilling Program going, and it was John Hargrove that was the savior throughout that point that actually allowed me, once we got production taken care of, we figured out how to do it, grow the distillery, we expanded it 3 times. But then I could focus with the rest of our team on developing the brand and the experience because that restaurant, It was having that restaurant open in the evenings and during the day, and the buzz that we created around that, and the whiskey library, and the whole concept of immersing people in, just in celebrating whiskey. We brought them in, we captivated them, we taught them about whiskey and bourbon and our story, and then they learned about our brand. And when they walked out, they truly felt a connection. They went out and told people about it. They came back, and you have to do that over and over and over again until you're blue in the face. I lived in that restaurant. Dan Bardstown lived in that restaurant and that experience. Sam, like all that whole team. And having that kind of home, building that kind of home is really, really important. And so when you look at what we're doing with Kentucky Owl, it's the same kind of thing. It's building an experience and a place that brings people in, again, immerses them, captivates them, and you leave with this connection to the brand. That's why it's so important. Otherwise, what happens? You go into a liquor store, you go into a bar, you see a product, you don't have a connection to it. You order whatever you normally order.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out a way to make, that connection. And that's why as you expand across the country and you get further away from your home, it becomes more and more challenging to develop that. So you have to look for some really creative ways to take what you do at your home, extend it into the market, and create that connection.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting about creating that connection and doing that. And we do that some on the podcast, right? There's a variety of us people that are doing these podcasts, whether you got the people at Bourbon Pursuit or Whiskey Cast or, it goes on and on. Dad's Drinking Bourbon, those are our people, but you have to differentiate because everyone is going to do something a little bit different. And how do we draw listeners back into the podcast on a weekly basis? It's not my beautiful face. I can tell you that right now. But that idea of branding is really tough, especially as the shelf space becomes more crowded, right? It's only going to get more crowded as American single malt takes off, as more craft brands continue, as more Scotch brands try to, take share in the American marketplace. It's just going to eat up shelving. So I think that's really interesting around brand creation. So as you think about your evolution and your next steps and that, what are the key things that you would, give to someone to balance out the sheer depth and breadth of going all in on these brands, right? How do you balance the hard work it takes with that family life, with those things that you like to do, getting away? No one can see this right now, but you're away in at a vacation home, right? How do you balance all that?
Well, look, that is, that's just a balance that you have to, develop over time. And I think, it's not always the easiest thing. And, starting a business, being an entrepreneur, I tell people all the time, it's not for everybody, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There are tremendous, highs, and lows to it. And you've got to be, have the stomach to kind of go through those because there are many more lows typically than there are highs. But, I tell people, people that get into this business, a lot of different things. And my advice to them is always to go slowly. Don't try to rush this. If you try to rush it, it's most likely not going to, to succeed. You look at the great brands out there. And I always also tell people, don't try to emulate, the one that is, the lightning strike, Patron, Grey Goose, you start ticking them down, 10 years, 15 years to build, Tito's, 25 years to build. There are a lot of reasons why those brands built the way they did. But for every one of those, there are thousands that don't make it. So build slowly, build carefully, protect yourself and your own interests as you do that. Make sure that your partners and who you get into bed with as an investor or as you get investors is really important, that relationship at the end of the day. And so, there are a lot of things, but everybody thinks that the spirits business is a sexy business. It's not. It's really hard business. And if you go in it thinking that it's going to be sexy and fun and all of that, you're really not, you're not really kind of, I think, prepared for the reality of this business. It's a very tough and very competitive business.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing, because you're always fighting for your position with your distributor, for your shelf space, for your on-premise, off-premise, depending on where you are, right? Like it's a constant battle. And you're trying to keep people hooked, right? That's like super difficult. Like even for me as a consumer, like I have 3 brands that I will spend my personal money on pretty much regularly. And outside of that, like it's a crapshoot here or there. And that's just, you develop brand loyalty, and that's a true thing. So one of the things that like I find it very interesting, and someone like yourself that kind of manages and wears multiple hats, like what's your best advice around really like prioritization of getting the things done that need to get done, whether it's with Kentucky Bourbon Festival, Kentucky Owl, and any other projects that you have going on, plus your family, right? How do you prioritize those things, or what's your method to prioritization?
Well, it's funny. I think people have all different, types of things. I happen to be somebody that's extremely organized. I make lots of lists. I'm beginning to use different technology now than I would have, and helping to do that. I think the most important thing, first of all, is to surround yourself with really great people. That's important, right? As a leader, you have to know what your weaknesses are. I know exactly what mine are, and I put the people around me that compensate for them, that thrive in those areas where I don't. So building a team around you is really important. Having that and giving everybody around you, the freedom, to setting the vision and setting kind of the pace and what you want to accomplish, but then giving them the freedom to create and go accomplish it, so that you're not micromanaging. And I think that's, it's really important. And, these are things that you just, you learn and you try to perfect over time. I don't think there's any secret sauce there, but that, is the team and how you manage the team and creating, and giving them the freedom to go get it done, and then making sure that everybody is properly rewarded, both financially and, and from, a, attaboy standpoint. People want recognition too. It's not just about money.
Yeah.
It's about making sure everybody feels a part of something. That's how you build a great culture. Every business that I have gotten involved in, I try to do that. We, did, I believe, an incredible job at that in the early days of Bardstown. And it's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think, recognition, as being someone who's never invested in anything but been an employee of many things, right? I could care less. This is going to sound bad if any of my bosses listen to this. Money's not everything to me, and that's perfectly fine. But when someone's like, "Hey, Jake, great job," that's worth my weight in gold. Like I'll be loyal for that, whether it was a coach playing football or that. Like I think creating an environment where praise is the natural thing, but constructive criticism is also the natural thing, right? Like that's a beautiful thing in business and in life, right? I'm focusing on that with being a parent right now. Is how do you balance giving that many attaboys to, time out with a 3-year-old? I feel like a lot of people don't get that. Like that's a difficult thing. You've been there. Your kids are older and they don't go to timeout probably anymore. But I'm sure you'd be like, "Hey, leave your phone there and you go in your room for 20 minutes." No, but those are the things I think that, are not just things that happen in the work culture, but they can be applicable to the home culture as well.
Yeah, it's right. That's true. And, you don't always do the best, balancing them in both places. It's funny. I find that sometimes a lot, doing these things at work is a lot easier, than doing them in your personal life. And so, no, it's a good point. It's a very good point. But, at the end of the day, what you just said there, it's true. Recognition, when they look at most surveys of, employees, is more important and more valuable than just, money. And so, instilling that kind of culture, in a business is really important, because that's what leads also then, to great customer service, and what leads to directly translates, to your customer. So it's a lot of work, and a lot of businesses don't do a good job at it.
Yeah. And so this next question, really is around David outside of work. So what do you really do outside of work? Because I feel like you're consumed with a ton of stuff, right? Like that is all work related, but some of it's volunteer or philanthropic. What are the things that get you excited outside of, just getting up and grinding as an entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, the number one thing are my kids,
Yeah.
right? So, a family that is, that to me is obviously the most, important thing outside of work. It gives me the greatest, joy. And then, beyond that, I do love getting involved in the community. I'm very active in the Bardstown community, whether it's the Bourbon Festival, whether it's other initiatives that we've gotten involved in over the years, Bourbon Capital Community Alliance, helping to develop, the Bourbon Guild. I enjoy that. I'm involved in, hotel development in Bardstown. I'm involved in economic development in Bardstown. I'm invested in a number of businesses there. I enjoy that. I'm also very active in an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, where you really get to interact with a lot of other young leaders, and that keeps me, it keeps me constantly learning.
Yeah.
Beyond that, people say, like, what do you do? I like to travel. I like to go to the gym. I like going to the beach. It gets pretty basic after that.
Yeah. I mean, like, so you if you have so much time in a day, right? And so you have to figure out what's important and as a father, right? Like kids can take up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 24 hours real quick. If they're not feeling well, if they have a game, whatever, your life can start revolving around them in a hurry. But that's great. Like, as long as you like that, right? Like not everyone is like meant to just be like that parent that is present. Some people are really good at being helicopter parents. Some parents are good just a step back, right? And that's one of the things like that I'm learning is you don't always have to be right up on it, but that's when your wife swoops in or your partner swoops in and like they do that. And you can, there's a give and take with that. And that's the one thing I'm learning a ton in my like personal life is there's times when she's in front and there's times when I'm in front, and you got to balance all that out. And that's the exciting thing about being a parent. You never stop learning, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, no question about that.
So now you said travel. I'm a big travel guy. So what's your favorite travel destination that you've been to?
I don't know. I actually like going to different places. My girlfriend and I just got back from, we were in Mykonos and Santorini, which was a wonderful trip. COVID, we were in Mexico, took the kids just down to Costa Rica, where we went to a place called Witches Rock, which is a surf camp that was run by Robert August from Endless Summer.
Oh, nice.
Guys. It's really kind of wild place. Every Tuesday night they show the movie. He's out there and narrating, and it's like walking like back into time. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But I enjoy traveling, and it's something that I plan to do a lot more of in the future.
Yeah, Mykonos and Santorini are gorgeous. Lucky enough, my mom, as a graduation gift and her retirement gift, basically to herself and everyone else, just got to go along with it. We went on a 14-day Mediterranean cruise, and so Santorini, Mykonos, Ephesus, Istanbul, and Athens. And boy, like if you can muster up the money to get there and scrape it all together, like you think America's got some cool places, it's got nothing on the Mediterranean. Nothing.
Just so much. At one point in my life, I had the opportunity to travel all over the world. It was when I worked for the Federal Aviation Administration. Now, granted, a lot of it was work.
Yeah.
It wasn't as much downtime, but I got to travel all through the Far East. I mean, it was really, just South America, some really wonderful trips and a lot of places that I definitely would like to go back.
Yeah. Tops right now for me, maybe Venice. I just really, truly enjoyed Venice. Thought it was just a great culture. I've stopped in Amsterdam many a time for a layover, but I've never gotten out in Amsterdam. I've heard Amsterdam's a great city just to explore and bike around. Yep. But then like East, I went to the Philippines, and the Philippines was gorgeous. Manila is literally a concrete jungle. If you think New York is wild, go to some of those, go to some of the Eastern Asian cities.
Oh, it's
and
unbelievable.
There's 26, 20 25, 30 million people all together. And New York has 8 million.
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Hong Kong, Shanghai,
Yeah.
Beijing.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that I would like to do, because I'd love to go to the Great Wall. Like, I would love to go to like the Seven Wonders of the World. That's kind of like my thing I want to do. My wife's not necessarily on board with that one.
Yeah. I definitely do it.
Yeah. Set a bucket list, right? I think that's one of the coolest things you could do, is set a bucket list and then try to achieve it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's great.
So this is the last question I got for you. This is the last question in with everybody.
Okay.
What is your one piece of advice to get time away, to get off hours? Like, how do you get that downtime?
I mean, you just have to, you have to make it. It's just, I don't have any particularly wonderful advice on that front. I mean, I think you just try to set certain times and say, you're going on vacation, book it.
Yeah.
When it comes to downtime during the day, you just have to try to carve out, and find those times, whether they're for yourself, whether they're for, being with family, because you can easily get consumed. One of the things that, I think is really tough now is, between social media, between all the platforms, between, I find the device for me is, it's a productive thing, but it's also one of the things that I, dislike the most. And I'm, a prolific user of it. Mm-hmm. But it's challenging, because I think more than anything, that is a distraction that's like sitting in your pocket, and it can distract you at absolutely every chance you let it. And we often let it. And I'm like the worst offenders of it. So it's managing that thing, to me, is really important, and it's getting harder.
It is. And so, you're funny. So episode 9, this will be episode 9. And I would say 7 of them said that for their piece of advice. But I think you said something really in particular, is make some non-negotiables in your life. I feel like sometimes we say yes to too many things because of FOMO, right? And I think that's a really thing, is lay down the law, let your yes be your yes. And so if you're going on vacation, go on vacation. So I think that's a really brilliant piece of advice there. So really appreciate you joining this episode of Off Hours with Bourbon Lens today. It's always great. One more pitch for Kentucky Bourbon Festival. We got to give one last ode to it.
Sure. So listen, do not miss it. Get it on the calendars and get tickets September 16th through the 19th, kybourbonfestival.com. Get it. And even if you can't go this year, get to the website, sign up, follow it. It's going to get better every year. And I'll tell you one thing, it's going to get harder to get tickets every year, because the lists are growing. We sold out all the VIP. We sold out all the special event stuff when we first released it. It sold in like a number of hours. Mm-hmm. And it's not, this is not a like an experience where you have tens of thousands of people. This is a curated, smaller, wonderful experience, which means it sells out faster. So get on the list and make sure, if you can this year, come on down. If you can't, follow us for the future.
Yeah. Well, we'll be there. We'll be hosting a lot of things. If you're in the area and you want to come talk to the Bourbon Lens guys, we'll be there, but we'll be bopping around and seeing everybody there. We're super excited. We're going to be less than a month away when this airs. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Off Hours with Bourbon Lens featuring David Mandell. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Off Hours, for sponsoring this for those moments in between. For those people who want to learn more about Off Hours, go to Drink Off Hours at Instagram. And then if you want to learn more about Bourbon Lens, go over to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bourbon Lens. And until next time, cheers.